He thought he could turn my house into a halfway house for his ex. My mother-in-law applauded the idea, and the ex herself walked in like she was just staying for a few days. They did not know that before their game was even set. I had already moved my king and queen to safety and taken the keys. That night, I showed them both the door to the house they thought they were taking over. This is how I did it. My name is Adeline Lawson. I am 32 years old, and I'm standing in the doorway of my own home. It is just past 7 p.m. in Westbridge Park. That specific time in late fall when the sky cannot decide if it is blue or black, and settles on a bruised, heavy purple. The automatic streetlights have just flickered on, casting a sick, orange glow on the manicured lawns. My hand is on the brass doorknob, the metal cold against my palm. I am not leaning. I am holding the door, and by extension, the entire 3,000-square-foot structure, steady. My face is calm. I practiced it in the rearview mirror of my car for 10 minutes in the driveway before walking in. My eyes, however, are a different story. They are not calm. They are locked, focused, and taking inventory. Inside, in the entryway I had painted Whispering Pine Tree after a 2-week debate, stands my husband, Ryan Calder. He is in the middle of a sentence, his hands gesturing in that way he has when he is trying to sell a client on a bad idea. He is explaining. He believes he is negotiating. Addie, you are overreacting. This is a temporary solution, purely about compassion, he says. The air in the foyer is thick with his reasonableness. Beside him, clutching a faded but expensive-looking leather duffel bag to her chest, is Hallie Monroe, the ex-girlfriend, the one whose name has been a ghost in our house for 5 years, and who is now, apparently, flesh and blood, and in need of compassion. She is performing victimhood beautifully, her eyes wide, her hair artfully messy, looking at the floor as if she is too ashamed to look at me, the wife. She is precisely as I imagined, and behind them both, standing closer to her son than a mother should, is Lillian Calder, my mother-in-law. Her arms are crossed, and her lips are pressed into a thin line of disapproval. She is not looking at Ryan or Hallie. She is looking at me. She is not confused by the situation. She is annoyed that I am not following the script where I, the accommodating wife, am supposed to sigh, then martyr myself, then welcome the stray. I let Ryan's explanation hang in the air, the words, temporary solution, echoing in the vaulted ceiling. I look past him, past the woman pretending to be small, and I meet Lillian's stare. We hold it for a beat. She thinks I am weak. She has always thought that. I bring my gaze back to my husband. I do not raise my voice. I never do. That is why they thought this would work. They mistook my control for compliance. This house, I say, and my voice is clear, each word a separate, solid thing. It cuts right through his placating tone, is in my name, Adeline Lawson, only Ryan's mouth, which had been opened to deliver another platitude, closes. You both? I continue, nodding once to him, and then swiveling my head to face the woman who is now staring at me, her victim mask slipping into shock. Need to get your things, and get out. Tonight, there is a profound, beautiful silence. The hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen, the distant sound of a lawnmower. Even though it is almost dark, Ryan actually blinks. He looks like a man who just ordered a coffee and was handed a live snake. He thought this was a discussion about boundaries. He thought he could handle me. He thought we would talk. I would cry. He would pat my back, and Hallie would be in the guest room by 9. He did not. For 1 second, think this was an eviction notice. Adeline, he starts, his voice changing. The salesman is gone. This is the angry husband. Do not be dramatic. Where is she supposed to go? I have literally no idea. I say, my tone bright, conversational. But I hear the Marriott near the interstate is clean. Or perhaps she can go back to where she was before you decided to turn my home into a shelter. Maybe she can stay with your mother. Hallie flinches. Her face, which was pale, floods with an ugly, blotchy red. She thought she was being welcomed as a tragic figure, a damsel in distress. She never imagined she would be classified as an accomplice, the other woman in a scene this tawdry. She looks at Ryan, waiting for him to fix this, to put me back in my box. Lillian, however, moves. She steps forward. You cannot be serious. Adeline, this is a family matter. Ryan is trying to do a good thing for a girl who is like family. She is not my family. Lillian. And as of this moment, neither are you. I look at Ryan. The locks are being changed in 60 minutes. The service is already paid for. If your belongings are not out by then, they become my belongings. I am sure I can find a charity that will take your suits. You are bluffing. Ryan snaps. I just smile. And this is when they finally understand. I am not angry. I am not hysterical. I am finished. I can see Mrs. Miller across the street, peering through her blinds. Her porch light is on. Good. Mr. Henderson, 2 doors down, is walking his golden retriever and has slowed his pace, his head cocked. I do not lower my voice. I want this. I want the witnesses. In Westbridge Park, a scene is worse than a crime, and I am making a scene. Ryan sees me clock the neighbors. His face goes pale. The public humiliation is, for him, the real betrayal. Adeline, let us go inside. Let us talk about this properly. He pleads, reaching for my arm. I step back, out onto the porch, pulling the door with me. The space is mine. The threshold is mine. He cannot follow unless I allow it. There is nothing to talk about. You made a decision. Ryan, you and Hallie, and your mother, you all met, and you discussed, and you decided what would happen in my house, without me. You decided my space, my home, was yours to give away. I pull the door further shut, until it is open only a few inches. They are clustered in the foyer. Trapped between the door and the staircase, I hold up the deadbolt key. It is the original, the one I kept separate. You thought you were so smart, I say, my voice soft now. Just for them. You thought you had me figured out. The quiet, reasonable wife from Maple Ridge who should just be grateful to be here. I look at Ryan's stupid, confused face, at Lillian's quiet fury, at Hallie's pathetic, performative tears, which have now started. I was just smart first. I close the door. The click of the lock engaging is the most satisfying sound I have ever heard. I stand on my porch, breathing in the cold night air. I can hear them moving inside, a muffled shout from Ryan, but they are inside, and I am outside, and in 1 hour, the reverse will be true, permanently. It all started a week earlier, a Tuesday, I think. I remember this because I had just closed out the gala proposal for the Children's Hospital fundraiser. A 4-month project that had drained every last creative cell from my brain. I left Everbright Creative Studio at 6:15, exhausted but proud. I was good at my job. I coordinated chaos for a living. I handled demanding clients, last-minute vendor cancellations, and floral arrangements that cost more than a small car. I was, in short, a professional problem solver. The drive back to Westbridge Park was the usual crawl. I was thinking about a hot bath and whether we had any of that Pinot Noir left. When I turned onto our street, the first thing I registered was that something was out of place. A car, a dark gray SUV I did not recognize, was parked in my driveway, right where I normally park my own sedan. It was an Audi Q5, not new, but not old, with a telltale layer of road grime and a Telluride sticker on the bumper. It was parked with an easy confidence, as if it belonged there. I pulled in behind it, my headlights illuminating the Colorado plates. I had to park on the street, which was the first prickle of annoyance. I grabbed my bag and walked up my own brick pathway, fumbling for my keys, my mind already cataloging. A client of Ryan's, a friend of Lillian's. I opened the front door, and the air in the foyer felt wrong. It was still, but occupied. Usually, I am greeted by silence or the distant sound of Ryan on a work call. Instead, I heard low voices from the living room, 2 female, 1 male. I dropped my keys into the ceramic bowl on the console table. The clatter was loud, and the voices stopped. Addie. Is that you? Ryan called out. His voice was too bright, too casual. I walked into the living room, and there they were. Ryan was standing by the fireplace, his shoulder resting on the mantel, but he was not looking at the fireplace. He was looking at a woman sitting on my beige linen sofa. A woman with soft, honey blonde hair, wearing faded jeans that looked artfully distressed, and a whisper-thin gray sweater. She was holding a mug in both hands. There she is, Ryan said, smiling. That broad, charming smile he used for clients and for smoothing things over. Adeline, honey, you remember Hallie, right? I stopped. I did not move. Hallie Monroe. Of course I remembered Hallie. The name echoed in my head. Hallie, the one that got away. Hallie, the one Lillian thought was better suited to the Calder family. Hallie, the sainted ex-girlfriend, whose memory had been a third person in my marriage for 5 years. And now she was on my sofa. She looked up, and she had the performance perfected. Her eyes were wide, a little damp, and full of a carefully curated vulnerability. She looked like a lost puppy, if a lost puppy wore cashmere. Hi, Adeline, she said, her voice soft, with a little vocal fry that made her sound perpetually apologetic. I am so sorry to just show up like this. I told Ryan it was a terrible idea. Hallie just went through a really rough breakup. Ryan jumped in, stepping away from the mantel to stand protectively near the sofa. He was her guardian, like, really rough, and she does not have anywhere to go right now. Her lease is up. The guy was a jerk, the whole 9 yards. I looked at him. I looked at her. I waited. I was solving a problem. This was a new event. I was assessing the variables. And then, the final variable made her entrance. Lillian Calder emerged from my kitchen. Not the hallway, not the guest bathroom. My kitchen. She was holding a small tray with a teapot and another mug. She walked in with the unbothered air of a homeowner. She smiled at me, but it was not a welcoming smile. It was a smile of triumph, a quick, barely there smirk that said, "Checkmate, Adeline, dear," Lillian said, her voice smooth as cream. "You are home late. Hallie was just telling us what happened. That awful man in Denver. Just terrible." It all clicked into place. The Audi with Colorado plates, the perfectly timed arrival, the teapot. This was not an emergency. This was an invasion, planned and executed. The fact that my mother-in-law was here, serving tea in my living room to my husband's ex-girlfriend before I even got home, told me everything I needed to know. This was not a request. It was an announcement. They had already decided. Ryan, the noble protector, Lillian, the compassionate matriarch, and Hallie, the damsel in distress. I was the only one without a pre-assigned role. They were waiting for me to read the room and accept the part they had left for me, the difficult, uncharitable wife. "So," Ryan said, rubbing his hands together in that false, hearty way, "I told Hallie she could, of course, stay with us for a little while, just until she gets back on her feet." I looked at the space, at my living room, at the woman sitting on my sofa. Our house is huge. "Addie," he continued, already steamrolling the silence he mistook for hesitation. "It is ridiculous to have all this space, 4 bedrooms, just for the 2 of us. It is the compassionate thing to do." He was reframing it. This was not a betrayal of our marriage, a violation of the most basic boundary. No, this was a test of my compassion. If I said no, I was not just a wife defending her home. I was a cold-hearted shrew turning away a woman in need. It was brilliant, really. Lillian's fingerprints were all over it. I held the silence for a moment longer. I let them sit in it. I saw Lillian's smile tighten. She was expecting a fight. She wanted a fight. She wanted me to yell, to cry, to make a scene, so she could look at Ryan with those I told you she was unstable eyes. So I did the very last thing any of them expected. I smiled. I put my work bag down on the chair by the door. I unzipped my boots. I walked further into the room, as if I were joining a party that I was perfectly happy to attend. "Oh, Ryan, of course," I said, my voice bright and accommodating. "That is a terrible story. Hallie, you must be exhausted. The shift in the room was electric. Ryan's shoulders visibly relaxed. He smiled, relieved. See, I told you she would understand. Hallie gave me a watery, grateful smile. Adeline, thank you. You have no idea. I promise I will not be a bother. Just a few days. A week at most. Lillian was the only one who did not look relieved. She looked surprised. Her eyes narrowed at me. Just for a second, I had gone off script. I had agreed too easily. Her victory lap had been cut short. She was suspicious. Good. Let her be. It is no trouble at all, I said. I turned to Ryan. The guest room with the blue comforter is clean. Right. The one next to the office. Yep. All set, he said, beaming. All set. He had already prepared the room. Before I got home, before he had asked me, and then, the final, perfect insult. Hallie stood up. She picked up a large, structured suitcase that had been tucked by the side of the sofa. One I had not even noticed. It was one of those expensive, hard-shell types. She had more than just her duffel bag. She had luggage. Thank you, she whispered again, as if she were overwhelmed by my generosity. She did not ask where the room was. She did not look to Ryan for direction. She just picked up her suitcase, grabbed her duffel bag, and walked straight to the staircase. She knew exactly where she was going. She had clearly been given a tour. I watched her go. I heard her footsteps on the hardwood stairs. Each step was a hammer blow on the foundation of my marriage. Click, clack, click, clack. Lillian put the teapot down on the coffee table with a sharp clink. Well, she said, forcing a polite smile, that is settled. It is so good to see people behaving like a real family, helping each other. I just kept smiling. That night, I did not kick them out. I did not scream. I did not cry. I went upstairs, ran my hot bath, and drank that glass of Pinot Noir while I listened to the muffled sounds of my husband helping his ex-girlfriend unpack in the room across the hall. I did not kick them out, because I wanted to see just how far they would go. I wanted to give them enough rope. I wanted to watch them show their entire hand. That night, I did not kick them out. I just started planning how I would. You see, Hallie's arrival was not an isolated incident. It was not a sudden emergency. It was the culmination of a 5-year-long siege, a Cold War fought over Sunday dinners, holiday group chats, and passive-aggressive compliments. It was a war for my position, a war I had been quietly, politely, and exhaustingly losing. The Calder family, from the outside, was Westbridge Park royalty. Not old money, but solid, comfortable, established money. Ryan's father, who had passed away 10 years ago, had run a successful regional logistics company. Lillian, his widow, had seamlessly transitioned from supportive wife to grieving matriarch, a role she played with Academy Award-winning skill. They were a unit. They had history, inside jokes, and a shared unspoken belief in their own superiority. And then there was me, Adeline Lawson from Maple Ridge. Maple Ridge is not a place you put on a bumper sticker. It is a small, forgettable town about 2 hours upstate, a place where people work at the paper mill or the local diner, not in logistics or PR. I did not have family backing. I had a deceased father who left me a small but life-changing insurance policy, and a mother who worked as a night shift nurse. I got myself through state college on scholarships and 2 part-time jobs. I built my career from nothing. My job at Everbright Creative Studio was not just a job. It was my proof that I was smart, capable, and belonged in rooms that people like Lillian Calder guarded. Lillian, of course, never saw it that way. To her, my career was party planning. That is what she called it. We would be at a neighborhood barbecue, and someone would ask what I did. Before I could answer, Lillian would jump in with that tinkling laugh. "Oh, Adeline is so creative," she would say, patting my arm. "She organizes parties, picking out balloons and little cakes. It is just adorable." She made me sound like I was running a 6-year-old's birthday business, not managing 6-figure corporate event budgets. It was a subtle, brilliant way to diminish me, to paint me as a hobbyist, not a professional. It was designed to remind Ryan that his wife was, essentially, fluff. And then there was Hallie, the ghost. From the day I was engaged, Lillian had a favorite story for new acquaintances and distant relatives. She would lean in, her voice dropping to a confidential whisper. You know, before Adeline, Ryan dated this wonderful girl, Hallie Monroe. Her family has the Monroe Foundation. You know, such a good family. They were just a perfect match. So much caliber. That was her word. Hallie had caliber. I, by implication, did not. For the first year of our marriage, I tried to ignore it. Ryan loved me. We were building a life, but Lillian was relentless, and Hallie was her favorite weapon. At family dinners, my sister-in-law, Paige, would dutifully echo her mother's sentiments. Paige was a weaker, less intelligent version of Lillian, but just as committed to the Calder brand. Mom, do you remember that summer Hallie interned at the governor's office, Paige would say, completely out of the blue, while I was trying to pass the green bean casserole. She was so ambitious. She really got the PR world. She would have been so good for your company. Ryan, who had inherited and was trying to modernize his father's company, would just shrug, uncomfortable. That was a long time ago. Paige, not that long. Lillian would murmur into her wineglass. Potential is timeless. Paige was also the gatekeeper of the family's digital life. There was the Calder family group chat. I was not in it. The excuse, when I first found out, was that it was for coordinating Mom's appointments. But then I saw Ryan's phone light up with photos of Paige's kid at the zoo. Memes, dinner plans. They were running a parallel family life. One where I did not exist. I was an attachment, an add-on, a +1 in my own marriage. When I confronted Ryan about it, that was when I saw the change. The supportive, us-against-the-world man I had married was disappearing, replaced by a stressed, tired negotiator. Addie, please, he would sigh, rubbing the bridge of his nose. It is just a stupid group chat. Can you just not make it a thing? My mom is high-strung. Paige is, well, she is Paige. I am in the middle here. I'm just trying to keep the peace. Keeping the peace became his mantra. But keeping the peace never meant telling his mother to respect his wife. It never meant telling his sister to stop being a high school bully. Keeping the peace always meant I had to be the one to bend. I had to be the one to understand. I had to be the one to absorb the insults and the exclusions. Also, Ryan did not have to have an uncomfortable conversation with his mother. He was not in the middle. He was firmly on their side, using peace as a shield for his own cowardice. The slow erosion of my position, the constant chipping away at my confidence, all came to a head about a year before Hallie's arrival. It was after a disastrous Thanksgiving. I had suggested we host, wanting to create our own traditions. Lillian had criticized everything: the brand of turkey, the way I mashed the potatoes not smooth enough, the fact I used my own grandmother's china instead of the Calder-approved set. By the end of the night, I was in the kitchen, scraping plates and fighting back tears. Ryan was in the living room, watching football with his brother-in-law. Lillian came in, supposedly to help. She stood next to me at the sink. She did not pick up a towel. "You try so hard." "Adeline," she said. It did not sound like a compliment. "I will give you that. I just kept scrubbing. I'm just trying to make a nice holiday." "Lillian, I know you are." She paused, and the air got cold. "You know, Ryan called off his engagement to Hallie to be with you. Did he ever tell you that they were practically at the altar?" I stopped scrubbing. This was new information, a lie, but a new one. Ryan and Hallie had dated. Yes, but he had always maintained it was over long before he met me. He told me it was not serious. I said, my voice quiet. Lillian let out a short, bitter laugh. "Oh, please, it was very serious. They had looked at rings. She was perfect for him. She understood his world, his family. And then he met you. And, well, it was a phase, I suppose. A little rebellion." She stepped closer. I could smell her expensive, sharp perfume. He would have married Hallie, she said, her voice dropping, as if she were telling me a secret. But it was a blade. If you had not gotten in the way, he would have married her. They would have had 2 perfect children by now, and they would be running this town. Sometimes, I look at you, and I think, you cost him that. You cost us that. It was the most honest she had ever been. It was pure, unadulterated venom, delivered with a calm, maternal smile. She was telling me, to my face, that I was an obstacle, a mistake, a disgrace. I did not say anything. I just stood there, my hands in the greasy, warm water. I let the cut sink in. Ryan came in a minute later, laughing about a football play, and the moment was over. I carried that scar. That conversation played over in my head for a year. That was the wound Lillian had left, the deep, festering belief that I was not worthy, that I was a placeholder, that I was the thing standing between my husband and his real life. So when I walked in that Tuesday, a week before the end, and saw Hallie Monroe on my sofa, I knew exactly what it was. This was not a rescue mission. This was a tactical maneuver. This was Lillian, finally bringing her ghost into the physical world. They were not just testing my boundaries. They were testing that old wound. They were pushing on it to see if I would finally break. They thought I was still that same woman, the one who would stand at a sink and bleed, the one who was still desperately trying to earn her place, who just wanted to be accepted. They thought I still wanted to be accepted. The guest room was not just a guest room. It was the upstairs shared bathroom, the one guests used, yes, but also the one where I kept the extra linens, the good towels, the bulk Costco purchases. It was, functionally, my storage and overflow. Within 48 hours, it was Hallie's. I went in on Thursday evening to get a new bottle of hand soap from the cabinet under the sink. I opened the medicine cabinet first. Just by habit, my bottle of ibuprofen was gone, pushed to the back, and in its place was a row of expensive-looking serums I did not recognize. On the counter, where my clean, empty porcelain tray used to be, there was now a high-end French cleanser, a tube of prescription-strength retinol, and a bottle of perfume, not a travel size. A full 3.4-ounce bottle. The cap was off. The scent, a heavy gardenia, was already sinking into the grout. She was not just visiting, she was nesting. She was marking territory. I said nothing. I found the hand soap and closed the cabinet. That night, I mentioned it to Ryan, my voice deliberately casual as we were brushing our teeth in our own master bathroom. Hey, Hallie has settled into the upstairs bathroom. She's got a lot of stuff out. He spat his toothpaste into the sink. Oh, yeah, she needs cabinet space. I was going to ask you. He did not even look at me, just rinsed his toothbrush. Can you clear out that bottom shelf under the sink for her? You have all that extra stuff in there anyway. I paused, my toothbrush halfway to my mouth. You have all that extra stuff, my linens, my cleaning supplies, my towels. My possessions in my house were now extra stuff, an inconvenience to be moved to accommodate his ex-girlfriend. He was not asking me. He was delegating a chore. He was making me the hospitality manager for her stay. Okay, I said, and put my toothbrush back in my mouth. The mask stayed on. On Saturday morning, the colonization spread. I came downstairs at 8 a.m., dressed in my own yoga pants, ready to make coffee. I was halfway to the kitchen when I stopped. Hallie was already there. She was standing at my counter, by my Nespresso machine, humming along to a playlist on her phone. And she was wearing Ryan's clothes. It was not just any shirt. It was his old, soft, gray University of Michigan sweatsuit, the one with the faded maize yellow M on the chest, the one he lived in on lazy Sundays, the one he wore when we first started dating, that I used to steal. It was intimate. It was a piece of his personal history, and it was hanging off her small frame, the pants cinched at the waist with the drawstring, the hoodie swallowing her hands. It was a costume. The "I am so comfortable here, I belong" costume. She looked up and gave me that small, apologetic smile. Oh, good morning. Adeline, I hope you do not mind. I was just so cold. And Ryan said, I said I did not mind. Ryan said, walking in behind me, already dressed for the gym. He clapped me on the shoulder, a buddy-buddy gesture that felt alien. He smiled at Hallie, a warm, genuine smile I had not seen directed at me in months. Looks better on you than it does on me. Hal. Hal. A nickname I had never heard, a nickname from a life before me. It is fine, I said, turning to the coffee machine. My machine. I am glad you are comfortable. Lillian began visiting with alarming frequency. She had a key, of course an in case of emergencies key, that she now interpreted as an anytime I want key. She would let herself in at 3 p.m, when she knew I was still at Everbright. I would come home to find her and Hallie at my kitchen island, sharing a pot of tea and laughing like old friends. Oh, Adeline. Hello, Lillian would say, as if I were the one interrupting. We were just talking about the old days. Hallie was reminding me of that hilarious trip to Lake Tahoe. She never asked me how my day was. She never asked if I needed anything. She was there to check on Hallie, to make sure Hallie was settling in, to provide the support and validation that, clearly, I was failing to offer. Lillian was building a fortress of their alliance, brick by brick, right in the middle of my kitchen. The real blow came on Wednesday. 1 week after Hallie's arrival, I was working late in my home office, finishing the logistics for the hospital gala. The house was quiet. I assumed Ryan and Hallie were in their respective rooms, but then I heard low voices from the kitchen. Lillian's car was not in the driveway, so she must have parked on the street. I crept down the hall, intending to get a glass of water. I stopped just short of the kitchen doorway, hidden by the shadow of the staircase. Lillian's voice was low, conspiratorial. You just have to be patient. My dear, he sees it. He knows he made a mistake. There was a pause. Then Hallie's voice, thick with that manufactured vulnerability. But Lillian, I feel so guilty. She is his wife. I am in her house. Lillian made a sound, a dismissive, that is a technicality, a piece of paper. You and Ryan, you are a better match. You understand his world. You always were a better match. It was just bad timing. He chose practicality. She spat the last word like it was poison. But men like Ryan, men with his standing, they always come back to caliber. You just have to be here, to remind him of what he left behind. A technicality. I was a technicality. I stood there, the blood draining from my face. It was not just a suspicion anymore. It was a plot. They were actively, openly, conspiring to dismantle my marriage, and they were using my home as their staging ground. I backed away silently. I did not get my water the next day. I logged into our joint bank account, the one we used for the mortgage, the utilities, the groceries, the US account. I scrolled through the transactions, utility bill, mortgage payment, Whole Foods again, and then I saw it. $120, Westbridge Fitness Club, a 10-day pass, $453, Ann Taylor. A cold, sharp clarity washed over me. I waited until Ryan got home. He was later than usual. Hallie, he had informed me via text, needed to run some errands, and he had offered to drive her. When he walked in just before 7, I was sitting at the kitchen island, my laptop open. Hey, he said, dropping his keys. Long day. You bought Hallie a gym pass. I said, it was not a question. He stopped, his hand still on his briefcase. What? And a suit. From Ann Taylor, with the joint account. He immediately became defensive, his face flushed. So what? She has interviews. Adeline. She needs to look professional. She cannot get on her feet if she looks like a wreck. It is what decent people do. We help. We did not help. Ryan, I said, my voice dangerously calm. You helped. You used our shared money to buy clothes for your ex-girlfriend. The money I put half of from my job. The party planning job. Oh my God. Stop counting pennies, he snapped, finally turning to look at me. It is $400. You spend that much on floral arrangements for one of your parties without blinking. I am trying to do a good thing here, and you are trying to turn it into some bean-counting exercise. It is beneath you. Addie, he had done it. He had twisted it, made me the small, petty, money-grubbing wife, and him the generous, compassionate man. He diminished my career and my complaint in one single, elegant dismissal. He did not even wait for me to respond. He just shook his head, disgusted, and went upstairs. He began coming home late almost every night after that. The excuse was always the same: taking Hallie to look at an apartment, helping Hallie fill out rental applications. They would leave together at 6 and return at 9 or 9:30. They would come in laughing quietly, energized. Ryan, who had been tired and distant for a year, was suddenly vibrant. He was alive. He just was not alive for me. This was not a rescue mission. This was an audition. They were trying on my life. They were testing the fit. He was dating his ex-girlfriend, under the guise of helping her, in my home, on my money. And they were all just waiting for me to crack, to get hysterical, to pack my bags and run back to Maple Ridge, leaving the house, the mortgage, and the man to them. They were not just letting her stay. They were actively, methodically, pushing me out. They had crossed the line. I do not give warnings before I strike back. Here is what Lillian, Ryan, and Hallie did not understand. They were playing checkers, moving one piece at a time, thinking one step ahead. They thought I was a pawn, a piece to be moved off the board. They did not know I was playing an entirely different game, a game of chess, 5 moves ahead, on a board they did not even know existed. They thought my power, my identity, my very worth was tied to this house in Westbridge Park and the man who shared it with me. They were wrong on both counts. Let us start with the house, this beautiful 3,000 square foot symbol of Calder success, the one Lillian referred to as my son's house, the one Ryan felt he had the right to offer up as a boarding house. My father, the man from Maple Ridge who worked at the paper mill until his lungs gave out, left me a small life insurance policy. It was not a fortune, just under $60,000. When we bought this house, the down payment was a combination half from Ryan's savings and half from that insurance money, my money. Lillian, of course, assumed the entire down payment was Calder money. Ryan let her believe it. It fit their narrative. About 18 months ago, interest rates dipped to a historic low. I saw it as an opportunity. I work with contracts and finance lawyers every day at Everbright. I live in a world of budgets, projections, and fine print. I am the one who balances our accounts, not Ryan. He earns the money, as Lillian loves to say. But I manage it. I proposed a refi to Ryan. We could save $400 a month, I told him, laying out the spreadsheet. He glanced at it. Yeah, fine. Whatever you think. Addie, just handle it. Just handle it. Those were his words. So I did. I handled it. I called the lawyer who handled the Everbright Gala contract, and I asked for a referral to a real estate attorney. I paid for a 1-hour consultation with my own credit card. I asked very specific questions about marital property, sole ownership, and how to structure a refinance using a premarital, inherited sum as the primary equity. It was complicated, but in our state, it was possible. I prepared the paperwork, all of it. I used my original down payment, which I had documented meticulously, to buy out his half of the equity in the new loan. It required him to sign one, very specific, notarized document, a quitclaim deed, transferring his interest in the property to me, Adeline Lawson, as my sole and separate property. I buried it in a stack of standard refi updates from the new mortgage company. We sat at this very kitchen island. He was on his phone, checking his email. Ryan, I need you to sign these, I said. What is it? Just the final bank paperwork for the new loan. Standard procedure. The notary will be here in 10 minutes. He grunted, picked up the pen, and scrawled his name on 3 different Sign Here tabs without reading a single word of what came before them. He was signing away his house while checking a text from his mother. This house, the one he was so generously offering to his ex-girlfriend, had been legally and exclusively mine for the past 1.5 years. His name was not on the deed. His name was not on the mortgage. He was, in the eyes of the law, a guest, a long-term tenant, and I was done with his lease. That was the first secret. The second was the evidence. I am an event planner. I do not believe in he said, she said. I believe in documentation. I believe in receipts. The day Hallie arrived, with her tear-streaked face and her pre-planned luggage, I went online. I ordered a nanny cam, the kind that looks like a high-end air freshener. It arrived the next day. I paid for it with my personal account. The excuse was our dog, Buster, a golden retriever who, to be fair, did have a habit of chewing the sofa pillows. I just want to see what he is doing when we are at work, I told Ryan. He barely looked up. I placed it on the bookshelf in the living room. It had a perfect, wide-angle view of the main seating area, of the sofa where Hallie sat, of the kitchen island where Lillian held court. I did not need to watch it live. I just let it record, downloading the footage to a secure cloud server every night. I now had hours of footage. I had Lillian, clear as day, coaching Hallie. He needs to see you as a partner, not a project, Lillian advised over tea. Just 2 days ago. Be present, be helpful, be what he is not getting. I had Hallie, walking around the living room, picking up my wedding photos, and putting them face down. I had Ryan, coming home, seeing the photos, and not turning them back up. But the best evidence came from Ryan himself. He is not smart with technology. He leaves everything logged in. Our shared tablet in the study, the one we use for recipes and browsing, was still logged into his personal email. The night I found the Ann Taylor charge, I went looking. I did not even have to dig. There it was, an email thread with Hallie Monroe, dated 3 weeks before she showed up. The subject line was, "Crazy idea." His first email was long, full of nostalgia, but the last paragraph was the one I screenshotted and saved. Sometimes I wonder if we made a mistake. Hal, I look at my life, and it is fine. It is stable. But I wonder what would have happened if I had not been so afraid. Marrying Addie was the safe thing to do. She is organized. She is capable. But is it life? I do not know. She is organized. She is capable. He was describing a project manager, not a wife. He had not just let her in out of compassion. He had summoned her. He had invited this chaos. He had planted the seed. And this was his little rebellion, Lillian's exact word playing out in real time. That was the second secret. The third, and perhaps the most important, was my exit strategy. Lillian's entire narrative about me was built on the idea that I was a social and financial climber, that I came from nothing, and I was clinging to her son's status, his money, his house. She thought I was trapped. She thought my party planning job was a cute hobby that barely covered my wardrobe. What she did not know is that for the last 6 months, I had been poached. Alder Keene Hospitality, the biggest luxury hotel and events group in the city, had been trying to get me to jump ship. Their head of development had attended the hospital gala I ran last year and had been in my ear ever since. The week before Hallie arrived, they made it formal. They did not just want me to plan events. They wanted me to manage the entire project division, a new title, a corner office, and a salary that was a solid 30% higher than Ryan's. I had been agonizing over the decision. It was a huge step. It would mean more hours, more stress. I had not even told Ryan. Because I wanted to be sure, the day after Hallie's arrival, the day she put her perfume in my bathroom, I called Alder Keene back. I accepted the offer. I signed the contract electronically that same afternoon. My new, much larger salary was set to be deposited into my new, completely private bank account, starting next month. My financial independence was not just secured, it was about to explode. I was not clinging to Ryan's world, I was subsidizing it. The technicality, the practical wife, was the one holding the entire thing together. So, while Hallie was trying on Ryan's sweatshirts, I was at my desk in my home office. I was not planning parties. I was planning a war. I printed everything. The new, updated deed to the house, with Adeline Lawson, a married woman as her sole and separate property. In clear, bold type, Ryan's notarized, clearly signed quitclaim. My signed, countersigned offer letter from Alder Keene, complete with the new salary, the bank statements from the joint account, showing the gym pass and the Ann Taylor suit, highlighted in yellow. The email from Ryan to Hallie, the "Is it life" one. I printed the screenshots of the text messages where Ryan told me he was looking at apartments with her, contrasted with the GPS data from our shared phone finder app, which showed they had been at the Willows, the most romantic, expensive restaurant in the adjacent town, for 3 hours. I put every single piece of paper into a bright, crimson-red portfolio folder, the kind I used for my most high-end clients. I closed it. I placed it in my work bag. They were all so busy setting their stage, trying to write their perfect little domestic drama. They had their roles, the valiant husband, the tragic ex, the powerful matriarch. They just kept forgetting to give me a script. So I wrote my own. They thought I was trapped because of money in the house. The very things they thought I lacked, I had in my control. The idea for the dinner came from Lillian. Of course, it was a Thursday night, 9 days into the occupation. She called Ryan's phone, and he put her on speaker, a habit he had that I usually found annoying. But this time, it was a gift. I was just thinking. Lillian's voice, syrupy and performative, filled the kitchen where I was pointedly wiping down a clean counter. Poor Hallie has been cooped up, and you two have been so wonderful. We should have a proper family dinner to say thank you to Adeline for being so understanding. I stopped wiping. At my house, she was proposing a party in my home to celebrate the woman who was trying to steal it. The audacity was almost impressive. Ryan, naturally, thought this was a stellar idea. Mom, that is great. We can do it tomorrow, Friday night. Addie, is that good? We can grill steaks. Before I could answer, he picked up his phone, his eyes bright with a new, terrible idea. You know what I should do? I should do a little video, a quick Instagram story, just showing how, we are all adults here, how we are a family that supports people, no matter what. It would be good. People need to see this kind of kindness. I stared at him. He was not talking about kindness. He was talking about public relations. He wanted to brand his wife's humiliation. He wanted to spin a story of his own compassion and my compliance, and he wanted to broadcast it to his 2,000 followers. He wanted to create a digital record, a public narrative, that would make it even harder for me to object. He was trying to legitimize Hallie's presence. That sounds ambitious. Ryan, I said, my voice perfectly neutral. Let us just focus on the dinner. Friday is fine. Whatever you want to grill. Perfect, he said, already lost in his little PR fantasy. So, Friday night arrived. I did nothing to prepare. I left the house a mess. I did not buy groceries. I did not set the table. If they wanted a thank you dinner, they could damn well provide the thank you materials. Lillian and Paige arrived at 6:30, a full 30 minutes before Ryan had even managed to get the grill lit. Lillian marched in, holding a grocery bag, and immediately tisked at the state of the kitchen. My goodness, Adeline, you must be tired from work, she said, which was her code for you are a terrible housewife. Paige followed, carrying a store-bought apple pie in a plastic container. She put it on my counter with a thud. She looked around the living room, where Hallie was sitting on the sofa, looking at her phone. Hallie, I noted, was not wearing Ryan's sweats. She was wearing the new Ann Taylor suit. Not the pants, but the sharp navy blue blazer, worn casually over a white t-shirt and jeans. She was dressing for the part of young, successful professional. She looked up when they came in. Hallie, dear, you look wonderful, Lillian cooed. Going to hug her. Not me. Her? Paige just stood there, a nasty little smile playing on her lips. She looked from Hallie on the sofa to me by the sink. You know, Paige said, her voice loud enough for the entire first floor to hear. It is weird. Seeing Hallie here, it just looks right, does not it, Mom? It just fits. It was the first truly overt declaration, The first shot fired directly at me, not hidden behind a compliment or a helpful suggestion. It was a public challenge. You are the one who does not fit. She is. Hallie had the good grace to blush. Looking down. Oh, Paige, do not say that. But she did not mean it. Lillian just patted Paige's arm. We are all just happy to be together. I kept my smile glued in place. It was my armor. Paige, what a lovely pie. Ryan, can you get the grill going, Hallie? Can I get you another drink? I'm going to open that Chardonnay. I played the part of the gracious, unflappable host. I was so accommodating, so calm, that it clearly reinforced their narrative I was the boring, practical wife, the one who kept things running, the one who was too bland and too weak to put up a fight. I even leaned into it. As Hallie followed me to the kitchen to get a wine glass, I said, my voice all friendly concern, I hope you have enough space in the guest room. I notice the closet is pretty small. Do you need me to get you some more of those thin velvet hangers? We could probably free up some more space. She looked at me, surprised, and then a little flicker of pity crossed her face. She thought I was pathetic. She thought I was trying to befriend her, to win her over, to manage my own replacement. Oh, that is so sweet. Adeline, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. But I think I am okay for now. The dinner was a disaster, just as I knew it would be. Ryan burned the steaks. Lillian complained about the wine I had chosen, and the conversation was a minefield. The moment of truth came over the store-bought pie. This is really nice. Rye, Hallie said, taking a bite. You all have such a great place. It feels so solid. Rye, she said it, casually, easily, like she had said it 1,000 times. Because she had. I watched Ryan's face. He did not even flinch. He just smiled at her. Glad you like it. Hal? Paige and Lillian exchanged a look, a tiny, victorious look. He did not even notice. He is ours. I felt a cold, sharp satisfaction. My air freshener camera on the living room bookshelf was aimed directly at the dining table. The audio was crystal clear. It was catching everything. The rye, the looks right, every second of it. I excused myself to clear the plates. I was in the kitchen, stacking dishes in the dishwasher, when Lillian, Paige, and Ryan came in. They were arguing about money, a favorite Calder pastime. Paige thought Ryan should be investing more in the market. Lillian, as always, tried to play peacemaker, but her words were for me. I was standing right there, but they spoke as if I were deaf, or simply not there at all. Now, children, Lillian said, grabbing a dish towel. Ryan knows what he is doing. This is a good investment. She patted the quartz countertop. This house, it is all about assets. He will be fine. I do not know. Mom, Paige whined. He is splitting everything. Lillian cut her off, her voice low and firm, but perfectly audible to me, and more importantly, to my camera's microphone. Do not be silly. Paige, a wife is a temporary arrangement. Family is forever. Do not worry about the house. Sometime soon, this house will be my son's. One way or another. One way or another, I froze, my hand on the soap dispenser. There it was. The entire plot, summarized in one neat, horrifying sentence. She was not just hoping, she was planning, she was telling her daughter, in front of her son, that I was a temporary problem that would be solved, and the assets my house would be secured for the Calder line. Ryan said nothing. He just opened the refrigerator, his back to me, and pulled out a beer. He was complicit in his silence. I finished loading the dishwasher. I wiped the counters. I smiled. Well, this was lovely, I said, walking back to the dining room. Thank you all so much for coming. They left by 10. As soon as I heard Lillian's car pull away, I locked the door. I turned off the air freshener. I went upstairs to my office. First, I downloaded the audio file. I labeled it Dinner, Friday, Lillian, Assets. Second, I opened my laptop and went to a local locksmith's website. I filled out the online booking form for the next afternoon. Reason for service. My husband lost his keys, and we need to rekey the entire property for security. Third, I opened my phone. I went to my group chat with my 3 closest friends from Everbright, a group of women who had seen me through client meltdowns and personal crises. I typed one sentence. Hey, weird request. If I needed to crash on someone's sofa tomorrow night, no questions asked. Just a key left under the mat. Who would be available? My phone buzzed 3 times within 10 seconds. My guest room is yours. Key is in the lockbox. Code is 1023. Sofa. You get my bed. I will take the sofa. What do you need? Already pouring the wine. The key will be in the potted fern. Are you okay? I closed my phone. I had my army. I had my evidence. I had my plan. They thought that dinner was for them to claim their territory. To formally install Hallie, I used it to get their signed confessions. It was Saturday afternoon, the day after the disastrous thank you dinner, the day after I had confirmed my locksmith appointment and my backup plan. The house was quiet. Ryan and Hallie were, once again, out, looking at apartments. I was in my office, not working, but sitting in the silence, my crimson folder on the desk in front of me. At 2 p.m., I heard the front door open. It was not just Ryan and Hallie. I heard Lillian's voice, loud and managerial. Just put your bag by the door. Dear, we need to speak to Adeline. This is a family discussion. I did not move. I let them come to me. The 3 of them appeared in my office doorway. Ryan, looking nervous but determined. Hallie, standing slightly behind him, the picture of reluctant necessity, and Lillian, holding a thick manila folder. Her face set with the grim determination of a CEO about to announce a hostile takeover. Adeline, Lillian said, not asking to come in, just walking in. The other 2 followed. Crowding the small space, we have some wonderful news, and a very simple solution to everyone's problems. I swiveled in my desk chair, folding my hands over my lap. Oh, Hallie has found the most charming little apartment over in Crestwood, Lillian announced, patting Hallie's arm. It is perfect for her. A 1-bedroom, very secure. That is wonderful news, I said, my voice flat. It is. Ryan agreed. Jumping in, it is great. The thing is, the landlord is complicated, very old school. He requires a cosigner with a significant local income, and the application is, invasive. I just stared at him, and Lillian took over, the seasoned negotiator. And Ryan, of course, is more than happy to co-sign for her. He has the income. He has the standing in the community. It makes perfect sense. She opened the manila folder. It was, as I suspected, a rental application. The problem, Adeline, is optics. The landlord is a very traditional man. He might find it peculiar. A married man co-signing a lease for a single woman. It could complicate the application. I did not speak. I just let the silence stretch. I knew where this was going. I had been waiting for it. So, Lillian continued, placing the folder on my desk. I had the most practical idea. A simple, temporary solution that benefits absolutely everyone. She smiled. A thin, reptilian smile. I think it would be best if you moved out. Just for a little while. I looked at Ryan. He nodded, his face a mask of false sincerity. Just for a few months. Addie, he said, his voice pleading. Just until Hallie's application is approved and she is settled, you can come and stay at my mom's place. You know she has that huge house. She has been so lonely. It would be nice for her, and honestly, it would be good for us. Too. We could save a little money. Put it toward whatever. I leaned back in my chair. My heart was not racing. It was cold. It was slow. It was the rhythmic thud of a machine. This was it. The moment they had been planning since she first set her gardenia-scented perfume in my bathroom. This was not a suggestion. This was my formal eviction notice, delivered by my husband and his mother. I needed this. I needed it on the record. I picked up my cell phone from the desk. I tapped the screen, as if I were checking a text. I opened my voice memo app. I hit the red button. I placed the phone screen down on the blotter, right next to Lillian's manila folder. So, let me make sure I'm understanding the proposal correctly. I said, my voice was soft. I sounded confused. hurt, exactly as they expected me to. It is very simple, dear, Lillian said, her patience already wearing thin. I said, pointing to my chest. Adeline, your wife, am to pack my bags and move out of my home. To my home, Lillian corrected, as if this made it a promotion. You would be my guest. It would be lovely. So I leave. And Ryan, I turned to him. You stay here, in this house. Well, yes, he said, shifting his weight. I have to work. Addie, my office is here. I have to, be here. I see. So, I leave my house, which I pay for. I said, my voice still light, and you stay here, with Hallie. No, Ryan said, a little too quickly. Hallie would move into her new apartment as soon as the lease is signed. I would just be co-signing. But you would be financially tied to her, indefinitely. And I said, looking back at Lillian, would be gone, out of the way. So your son can take care of his ex-girlfriend. Is that the plan? The ugly truth of it hung in the air. Ryan's face turned red. This was not how he had practiced it. Hallie, right on cue, stepped forward. The tears were already welling. Oh, Lillian, Ryan, I told you this was too much to ask. Her voice was a perfect, trembling whisper. I cannot be the reason for this. Adeline, I am so sorry. I will go. I will find a shelter. I will figure it out. It was a beautiful performance, a masterclass in manipulation. She was painting me as the cruel monster who would send her to a homeless shelter. All while she was mentally measuring my office for her new yoga mat. I could see her eyes, darting around the room, not in panic, but in appraisal. Lillian, however, was not having it. She was too close to the finish line. She waved a perfectly manicured hand at Hallie. Nonsense. Dear, do not be dramatic. Adeline is a practical woman. She understands. And then, she turned to me. Her eyes were not kind. They were not negotiating. They were issuing a command. Adeline, you are a modern woman. You are independent. You have this impressive career you are so focused on. The slight sneer on career was not lost on me. You are not the type of old-fashioned, sentimental woman who gets attached to things. She tapped the manila folder. She gestured around my office. It is just a building. It is just possessions. This is about family. This is about loyalty. This is about helping someone in need, not clinging to your assets. I looked at her. I looked at Ryan, who was nodding along, his face showing nothing but relief that his mother was handling the hard part. I looked at Hallie, who was watching me with a calculated, bottomless pity. You are not the type of woman who gets attached to things. They were trying to use my own independence, the very thing I had built to protect myself, as the weapon to disarm me. They were telling me that to be strong, I had to be homeless, that to be modern, I had to surrender. This was the moment. This was the precise second I decided that they would not just be leaving, they would be exposed, right here, in this building I was not attached to. I let out a long, shuddering sigh. I let my shoulders slump. I looked at the floor. I let them see the defeat they so desperately needed. You are right, I whispered. Ryan's head snapped up. What you are right, I said, a little louder. I looked at Lillian. It is just a building. It is just possessions. A slow, triumphant smile spread across Lillian's face. She had won. She had finally and completely broken me. Ryan let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for 5 minutes. Addie, thank you, he said, his voice thick with relief. I knew you would understand. I knew you would do the right thing. I stood up from my chair, a performance of weary resignation. I walked to the window, my back to them. But it is a lot to take in. It is my whole life. You know, we know. Dear, Lillian said, her voice all syrupy compassion now that she had her victory. I cannot just pack a bag today. I said, I need a minute. I need to process this, as a family. Of course, Ryan said. Take the weekend. No, I said, let us do this properly, formally, so I feel right about it. I turned around, my face a mask of fragile agreement. Let us have a final dinner. Next Friday, the whole family, you, me, Mom, Paige, her husband, Hallie, you should be there too. Of course, it concerns you. Ryan looked confused. A dinner, Addie, the apartment application. Friday, I said, my voice finding a new, false strength. It is only 6 days. I need that. I need us to sit down, as a family, and all agree this is the plan. I need to feel supported, not just kicked out. You understand? Right? I had given them an angle they understood my feminine need for emotional ceremony. I was not fighting. I was asking for a ritual of surrender. Lillian looked at Ryan. She nodded once. A formal, public declaration would be even better for them. It would cement my abdication. Very well. Adeline, Lillian said, picking up her manila folder. Now redundant. Friday night it is. We will all be here. 7 o'clock. To finalize the plan. Thank you, I whispered. I looked at Ryan. Thank you for understanding. He gave me a quick, guilty hug. You are doing the right thing. Addie, this is for the best. For everyone. They left. I heard their voices in the hall. Already lighter. Celebratory. I stood at my office window and watched them get into Lillian's car. Hallie sat in the front passenger seat. Lillian was driving. Ryan got in the back. A perfect little family. I turned back to my desk. I picked up my phone. I hit the stop button on the voice memo. I saved the file. I labeled it The Eviction. They had no idea. They thought I was scheduling my own farewell party. They did not understand that I was setting a trap, and they did not know I was inviting an audience to watch me spring it. The week leading up to that Friday was the longest of my life. I lived like a ghost, a polite, smiling, hollowed-out version of myself. I went to work. I came home. I made small talk. I listened to Ryan and Hallie whisper in the kitchen, their voices now open and easy. All pretense of her being a guest dissolved. They were a couple, living in my house, waiting for me to leave it. On Friday, I left work early. I told my new boss at Alder Keene I had a family matter to attend to. He just told me to take the time I needed. I went home, and I cleaned. I did not just tidy up. I deep cleaned. I scrubbed the floors until they shone. I polished the silver. I washed the good crystal. I went into the garden and cut the last of the hydrangeas and arranged them in a large vase for the dining room table. I set the table for 8. My wedding china, my grandmother's linen. The house did not look like a war zone. It looked like a feature in Southern living. It was a stage, set for a very formal, very final performance. At 6:45, the doorbell rang. It was Mark and Susan Miller, our next-door neighbors. Mark was on the HOA board, and Susan was the biggest gossip in Westbridge Park. They were, in short, perfect, Adeline Susan said, handing me a bottle of wine. This is such a treat. We never get to see you, and your house looks, wow, it looks incredible. Thank you for coming on such short notice, I said, leading them into the living room. I just felt like we all needed a really nice, civilized dinner party. Can I get you a drink? As I was pouring Susan a Chardonnay. The doorbell rang again. The Calders, all of them. Ryan and Hallie walked in first. Ryan was in his confident host blazer, but he looked nervous. Hallie was in a simple black dress, the picture of quiet elegance. Lillian and Paige, with her silent, long-suffering husband, followed. Lillian stopped in the entryway, her eyes narrowing as she took in the scene. She saw the Millers, sipping wine by my fireplace. She saw the perfectly set table. This was not the set for a tearful surrender. This was not part of her plan. Adeline, she said, her voice strained. What is all this? I did not realize you had other guests. Oh, just the Millers. We have been meaning to have them over for ages, I said, smiling brightly. You know Mark, from the HOA. Come in, come in. Let me get you all a drink. We are all family and friends here. Right. I have to hand it to them. They recovered quickly. They saw the audience and recalibrated. They could not be the rescuers tonight. They would have to be the concerned family. They greeted the Millers. The air was thick with fake smiles. I served appetizers. I had made them myself. Baked brie with apricot jam. Prosciutto-wrapped asparagus. Lillian looked at me like I had grown a second head. The defeated wife in exile was not supposed to be serving impeccable hors d'oeuvres. We sat at the table. I put Ryan at the head, as always. I sat at the other end. I had placed Lillian and Mark Miller on one side, Paige and her husband and Susan on the other. Hallie was seated between Ryan and Susan. A place of honor. I served the salad. The small talk was excruciating. Susan, bless her heart, tried to fill the silence by talking about the new HOA rules on recycling bins. Finally, as I stood to clear the salad plates, Lillian put her fork down with a sharp clink. "This is all very lovely." "Adeline," she said, looking pointedly at the Millers, then back to me. "But I believe we had some family business to discuss tonight." Ryan flinched, but he took his mother's cue. He cleared his throat. He put his napkin on the table. He was doing it. He was actually going to do it. "She is right. Addie," he said, adopting that awful, reasonable tone he had used in my office, Mom, Paige, Hallie, and I, we have all been talking, and we all think the best option, for everyone, is, well, it is for you to take that step. To move out, just for a little while, so we can all get some perspective. He looked at the Millers, as if seeking their approval. "Adeline has been so stressed by work. We just think she needs a break, and my mom has so much room." Susan Miller's eyes widened. She looked at me. "Move out." I let the silence hang. I stood at the head of the table, by my empty chair. "Thank you." "Ryan," I said. My voice was calm, but it filled the room. "Thank you for making that so clear, especially in front of our friends." I walked to the sideboard. I picked up the crimson-red portfolio. I walked back to the table and placed it on the polished wood, right next to the floral centerpiece. "The thing is," I said, my voice still light, "I also have some paperwork, and I was hoping you all could help me go through it." Ryan looked confused. "What is that?" "Your proposal for the hospital." "No." I said. I opened the folder. This is the house." I slid the first document onto the table. "This, Lillian, is the deed. The one for the house you are in. The one you told Paige last week would be your son's, one way or another. I am sure you will all be interested to see the name on it." Lillian went white. I pointed to the highlighted text. "See Adeline Lawson, a married woman as her sole and separate property. Not Ryan Calder. Not Ryan and Adeline Calder. Just me." Ryan shook his head, laughing nervously. "That is not right. That is not possible. We bought this house together." "We did." I agreed, and then we refinanced. 18 months ago. I slid the second document across the table, right on top of the first. "And this, Ryan, is a quitclaim deed. The one you signed, right here at this table. While you were checking your text messages, it transfers all interest in the property to me, in exchange for my premarital, inherited funds being used as the primary collateral. Your signature is right there, at the bottom, notarized." Mark Miller, the HOA board member, leaned in to look. He knew a legal document when he saw one. I did not know what that was." Ryan stammered. "I know." I said, "You never read the fine print," which brings me to this. I took the third paper out, the email. This is an email you sent to Hallie, 3 weeks before she arrived, before her terrible breakup. I looked at Hallie. Her face was ashen. "You remember this one, right?" The subject line was "crazy idea." I did not let them answer. I read it aloud. My voice was not angry. It was the voice I used for client presentations, clear, steady, and devastating. Sometimes I wonder if we made a mistake. "Hal, I look at my life, and it is fine. It is stable. But I wonder what would have happened if I had not been so afraid. Marrying Addie was the safe thing to do. She is organized. She is capable. But is it life? I do not know. Susan Miller literally gasped. She put her hand over her mouth. I put the email down. I looked at Ryan. His face was gray. So, Ryan, here is the good news, I said, my voice softening, as if I were truly helping him. You do not have to wonder anymore. You are free to find out. You can choose her. You can go and have life. I then turned my gaze to Hallie, who was frozen, her fake tears replaced by a very real, very ugly expression of panic. You can have him. Hallie, truly, he is all yours. I paused, and then I delivered the final line. But you cannot have him in my house. Lillian was the first to find her voice. It was a venomous hiss. You cannot afford this. You cannot afford this house on your little party planning salary. You will be bankrupt in 6 months. Ryan's money pays for all of this. Does it? I asked. I smiled. It was the first genuine smile I had felt in weeks. That is the last piece of paper. Lillian, and my personal favorite. I pulled the offer letter from Alder Keene Hospitality from the red folder. I am so glad you are here. Susan, Mark, you will appreciate this. You know how Lillian has always called my career party planning. Well, this is my new employment contract. I accepted it 2 weeks ago. Senior Project Manager. Hospitality Division. I placed the letter on the table. My new salary was circled in red ink. As you can see, I said, looking right at Lillian, my new salary is, as of next month, roughly 35% higher than your son's. So, as it turns out, I can afford this house, and my car, and my groceries, and a very, very good lawyer. The silence in the room was absolute. You could hear the ice melting in the glasses. Mark Miller was just staring. Susan looked like she had just won the lottery. I folded my hands. I looked at Ryan. I looked at Hallie. So, no, I am not moving out tonight. You two are. The shift was instantaneous. The blood drained from Ryan's face, and he immediately switched tactics, from arrogant host to pleading husband. The anger dissolved into a desperate, pathetic panic. Addie, wait, he said, standing up so quickly his chair almost tipped over. He reached for my hand across the table. I pulled it back. Okay, you made your point. You are hurt. I get it. I screwed up. I should have told you, but I was just helping her. She was desperate. I did not think you would be this wounded by it. He turned to the Millers, his eyes wide, begging for an ally. Mark, Susan, you know me. I am not a bad guy. She is my oldest friend. She was in trouble. I was just trying to help an old friend. I never meant to hurt Adeline. Before I could even respond, Lillian shot to her feet. Her face, which had been pale, was now a deep, mottled red. Her performance was over. This was the real Lillian. You, she shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at me. You have been planning this. This is disgusting. This is a performance. You are too dramatic. Adeline. You are airing our private family business in front of neighbors. Susan Miller, who had been watching this all unfold with the focus of a hawk, did not flinch. She placed her wineglass on the table and looked directly at Lillian. Her voice was cold. Lillian, I am not your neighbor right now. I am a witness. And frankly, I have heard every word. You do not get to call her dramatic for this. What I just heard, that was not family business. That was a conspiracy. Lillian looked like she had been slapped. How dare you? Oh, I dare. I said, my voice still calm. I picked up my cell phone from the table where it had been sitting, screen down, next to my plate. You are right. Lillian, I am dramatic, and I do love a performance, but my favorite part is the encore. I tapped my phone screen. I opened my audio files. I found the one labeled Dinner, Friday, Lillian, Assets. I pressed play, and I turned the volume all the way up. My own voice, muffled, came first. Then Paige's, whining about money, and then, clear as a bell. Lillian's voice filled her own shocked silence. Do not be silly. Paige, a wife is a temporary arrangement. Family is forever. Do not worry about the house. Sometime soon. This house will be my son's. one way or another. I stopped the recording. Lillian Calder's mouth was open. No sound was coming out. She looked at Mark. She looked at Susan. Their faces were masks of pure, unadulterated disgust. She was, in that single moment, socially executed. All her standing, all her caliber, evaporated under the fluorescent lights of my dining room. I put my phone back in my pocket. "So," I said, gathering the crimson folder, "here's the updated schedule for the rest of the evening. It is currently 7:30 p.m. I looked at my watch. A deliberate, slow gesture. In exactly 30 minutes, at 8 p.m., a locksmith from Westbridge Security will be arriving. He has been booked for a week. He will be rekeying the front door, the back door, the side door, and the interior door to the garage. He will also be deactivating all remote entry key fobs for the garage and the main gate." I looked at Ryan. I looked at Hallie. "This means that every key you currently possess will become a useless piece of metal. This is a non-negotiable." Ryan stared at me. You cannot just kick me out. I live here. I have rights. I will call the police." "You will not," I said, my voice bored. "Because I spoke to my lawyer." "Oh, yes, I have one. A very good one. 2 weeks ago. You are not a tenant. You pay no rent. You are not on the deed. Your residency here is as my spouse, and as I am respectfully asking my spouse to vacate the premises due to infidelity and, well, this," I gestured to the table. "The police will call it a domestic dispute and tell you to leave. Precisely as I am doing." I leaned in. "The law in this state is very, very clear about sole and separate property." Ryan. "You signed the refi. You gave up your claim. You gambled, and you lost." I turned to Hallie, who had started to cry. But these were not the soft, pretty tears from before. These were the ugly, panicked, blotchy tears of someone who has just seen their entire future go up in smoke. "Hallie, you are much simpler. You are a guest, and your stay is over." I stood up straight. I gave them both the brightest, most accommodating smile I could muster, the one I used for difficult clients. "Now, I am going to offer you both one kindness, the one kindness you did not offer me. It is the gift of discretion." I signaled to the Millers. "Our friends here are going to stay and have dessert with me. The locksmith will be here in I checked my watch again, 28 minutes. That gives you both just enough time to go upstairs. Pack your immediate personal belongings, toiletries, clothes for a few nights, laptops, and be out the front door before he arrives. You can leave quietly. You can avoid having this scene play out on the front lawn for the entire neighborhood to watch. What you leave behind. Ryan. We can arrange for movers to pack at a later date. Through our lawyers." I looked at Lillian, whose face was still a mask of silent shock. "And you, Lillian, can drive them. I believe you said you have plenty of room at your house. It sounds like you're about to have 2 new roommates." For a second, nobody moved. The entire room was frozen. Then Hallie, with a strangled sob, pushed her chair back and ran. She did not walk. She ran. Up the stairs. The victim was gone. The damsel was gone. All that was left was a panicked woman, grabbing her expensive serums from my bathroom. I heard her suitcase wheels roll across the hardwood floor above us. Ryan just stood there, shaking his head. Adeline, please, do not do this. This is our life." "No, Ryan," I said, "it was my life. You were just living in it. You, and your mother, and your ex-girlfriend. Now, you need to go and get your things." He tried one last time. He tried to puff himself up. He tried to find that man-of-the-house voice. "I am not leaving my home. It is not your home," Mark Miller said. His voice a low rumble. He had not spoken, but he was on the HOA board, and he represented authority in this neighborhood. "I just saw the deed. Ryan, she is right. The law is clear. You should probably just go." That was the final blow. The betrayal from another man. It broke Ryan's spine. Lillian finally found her voice. It was low, shaking with rage. "You will be hearing from our lawyers. You will not get away with this. This family will ruin you. That little job of yours. We have friends at Alder Keene." We will see about that. I laughed. A real, actual laugh. Good. I said, please, tell them your son committed adultery in my house. Tell them you tried to conspire to have me kicked out. Tell them I have it on audio. Tell them I have neighbors who will testify. Go ahead. Lillian, please, call your lawyers. I am sure they will be thrilled with this case. I walked to the front door. I opened it. The cold night air felt amazing. I am ready for them. I already have a lawyer. Remember, mine is on retainer. Is yours? That shut her up. Hallie came clattering down the stairs, dragging her hard-shell suitcase, the one I remembered from that first night. Her face was a mess. She did not look at anyone. She just ran out the door. Ryan stood in the dining room for one more second, looking at the life he had just burned to the ground. He looked at me, his eyes full of a hatred I had never seen. It was the hatred of a man who has been exposed, truly and completely. He did not say another word. He turned, walked to the hall closet, grabbed his jacket, and walked out the open door. Lillian gave me one last look, a promise of a war she could never win. Then, with her head held high, she too walked out. I watched them pile into Lillian's car, Hallie in the back this time, buried next to her suitcase, Ryan in the front passenger seat, Lillian driving. I stood in the doorway and watched them drive away. They left in silence, complete, defeated, humiliated silence. It was the most beautiful, peaceful sound I had heard in 5 years of marriage. After they left, the silence in the house was so profound it felt like a physical object. The Millers, bless them, did not know what to do. Susan just looked at me, her eyes wide. Adeline, she whispered, Are you okay? I am, I said. And the shocking part was that I meant it. Mark, Susan, I am so sorry to have put you both through that. That was not the dinner party I intended. Honey, Susan said, walking over and grabbing my hand, that was the best dinner party I've ever been to in my life. Now, what can we do? Stay, I said. Stay until the locksmith comes. I do not want to be alone when he gets here. They stayed. We did not eat dessert. We drank wine. Mark, a quiet, solid man, just kept shaking his head, muttering, The deed. He signed the deed. Susan asked 1,000 questions, and I answered them. I gave her the whole story. I knew by Monday, every person in Westbridge Park would know exactly what Lillian Calder had tried to do. My reputation would be fine. Hers would be in ashes. The locksmith, a young guy named Kevin, arrived at 8 o'clock on the dot. He was efficient. He worked quickly. By 8:45, every lock was new. He handed me a set of 4 new, shining brass keys. I paid him, added a $100 tip, and thanked him. The Millers walked me back inside. He is going to leave his car, Susan noted, peering out the window at Ryan's silver BMW still parked in the garage. I know. I said, I will handle that. After they left, I made a call. I called the Westbridge Park Homeowners Association 24-hour line. I reported a vehicle, belonging to a non-resident, parked in my driveway without my permission. I explained that it was blocking my access to my garage. They promised to have a tow truck out by morning to move it to the street, as per HOA bylaws. I slept on the sofa, not because I was afraid to be in my bed, but because I wanted to be near the front of the house. I did not sleep well, but I slept. I was up at 6 a.m. I made a pot of coffee, the strongest I could find. I sat at my kitchen island, the one where Lillian had planned my demise, and I watched the sun come up. At 6:30, I saw the tow truck arrive. With impressive, quiet efficiency, they hooked Ryan's car and dragged it out of my driveway, depositing it on the street. Parallel parked 20 feet from my mailbox. At 8:15, just as I was pouring my second cup of coffee, they returned. Lillian's black Mercedes pulled up to the curb. All 3 of them got out. Ryan, Lillian, Hallie. They looked tired, rumpled, and furious. They had clearly spent the night at Lillian's, stewing in their own humiliation, and had now worked themselves up into a new state of righteous anger. They thought last night was an emotional outburst. They thought today, in the cold light of day, sense would prevail. They thought I would be terrified, regretful, and ready to beg for forgiveness. Ryan strode up my walkway first. He jammed his old key into the new lock. I heard it, the clack of metal hitting the reinforced plate, the scrape of a key that no longer fit. He tried again, and again. He rattled the doorknob. "Adeline," he yelled, "I know you are in there. Open this door. It stopped being funny about 12 hours ago." He then marched to the garage keypad. He punched in his code. Nothing. He used his remote clicker. Nothing. Then he saw his car, sitting on the street. "You had my car towed," he roared. He was not just angry, he was personally, deeply offended. The public humiliation was more than he could bear. Liliana and Hallie marched up the steps to the front porch. Lillian began pounding on the door with her fist. "Adeline Lawson, you open this door right now. This has gone far enough." I walked calmly to the front door. I pressed the talk button on my video intercom system. My voice, amplified by the small speaker, was clear and calm in the morning air. "Go away." "Lillian." All three of them jumped. They looked at the small black speaker next to the door. Adeline, Ryan yelled, his face contorting. "Stop this. Stop this right now. Let us in. We need to talk. We need to work this out like adults. We finished talking last night." "Ryan," I said. My voice was as flat as the concrete porch they were standing on. "There is nothing left to say. You were asked to leave. You are trespassing." "Trespassing," Lillian shrieked. Her voice was already cracking with rage. "This is my son's house. This is Calder family property." "You conniving little snake. You tricked him? I did not trick him." "Lillian," I said, "I just knew he would not read the paperwork. Now, please, get off my property." "You are going to be hearing from our lawyer," she screamed. "We are going to take this house, and we are going to take everything you own." "What lawyer?" "Lillian," I asked. "The one you were going to call last night. I am still waiting." I, on the other hand, already have one. I had anticipated this. I walked back to my office, grabbed the deed from the red folder, and walked back to the door. I pressed my face close to the peephole. They were all clustered there, staring at the speaker. "Lillian," I said, my voice cutting through her tirade. "Look at the camera." She stopped yelling, confused. She looked up at the video doorbell. I held the deed up to the glass of the peephole, pressing it flat. The high-definition camera gave them a crystal-clear view. "Do you see that name?" "Lillian," I asked. I had my finger on the highlighted line. It says Lawson. Adeline Lawson. Not Calder. It is not family property. It is my property. Now get off of it. Lillian was speechless, staring at the legal proof of her complete defeat. And then, the final, perfect piece of timing. Mr. and Mrs. Henderson, our neighbors from 3 doors down, came around the corner. They were on their morning walk, dressed in matching tracksuits, their 2 small terriers trotting ahead of them. They stopped. They saw Lillian, Ryan, and Hallie crowded on my porch, yelling at my door. They saw Ryan's car, parked awkwardly on the street. They saw me, visible only as a disembodied voice. Lillian saw them. She saw them stop. She saw their faces, a mixture of shock and delicious, horrified curiosity. In that moment, her entire social standing in Westbridge Park dissolved. She was no longer the matriarch. She was just a crazy woman in last night's clothes, screaming on her daughter-in-law's doorstep. Ryan saw them too. The humiliation was total. He finally understood. He looked at the camera, his face slack. "Adeline." Why, he whispered. It was not a question of anger. It was a question of genuine, pathetic confusion. He still did not understand how the organized, capable wife had done this. "Because you thought I was a technicality." "Ryan," I said through the intercom, "you thought I was the safe choice. You were wrong." I took a breath. "Oh, and one last piece of business. I filed for divorce online last night, immediately after you left. It is a no-fault state, so this should be very, Very simple. I am emailing you the scanned petition and the case number right now. Check your phone. I hit send on my laptop. I watched him, through the peephole, as he pulled his phone from his pocket. I watched his face as the notification came through. I watched him open the PDF. I watched as 5 years of his condescension, his arrogance, and his mother's manipulations crashed down on him. It was not a fit of anger. It was not a dramatic outburst. It was a plan, a complete, precise, and perfectly executed plan. And he had walked right into it. He looked up, his eyes dead. Hallie was crying, but he was not looking at her. Lillian was trying to pull his arm, but he was frozen. He was looking at the door, at the camera, at the woman he had underestimated for the last time. I pressed the button one last time. You wanted to take care of your past. Ryan, I said, so go. Go live with it. I am keeping my future right here. I turned the intercom off. I heard Lillian start to scream again. But I just walked away from the door. I walked back to my kitchen. I poured my coffee. I could hear them yelling for another minute, but the sound was distant. They were outside. I was inside. My husband let his ex stay in our house, so I showed them both the door. Simple, legal, and so satisfying. Thank you so much for listening to my story. Please drop a comment below and let me know where in the world you are listening from. I would love to connect and share our thoughts. Be sure to subscribe to Zoe Revenge Stories, like this video, and give us extra support by pressing the hype button so this story can be heard by even more people.